The Pittsburgh Steelers are starting to move swiftly through their offensive coordinator candidates, scheduling interviews, requesting interviews, and conducting interviews. And they're starting to get some feeling, there's a little bit floating out there, that they really could shoot for the stars and get that top tier number one choice. I think a lot of us are hoping they land. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackmine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/all Steelers talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they add another name to their offensive coordinator candidate list, bringing in Thomas Brown for their first interview, not request, not reports that they will talk, a real in-person interview. And, well, it's got to be another step in the right direction for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are a lot of people out there saying, why would you want somebody from the Carolina Panthers? It's tough to judge that guy. Kind of feels safe. Feels like they're doing their due diligence. Maybe they are. But Thomas Brown is a good name. He was a guy that a year ago was looked at as one of the hottest offensive coordinator candidates out there. A guy who is a genius when it comes to the offensive side of the football and play calling, and comes from the right coaching tree. And Sean McVay has spent time as his assistant head coach for a few years, has a long run in the NCAA, including being an offensive coordinator in the past with Miami. He just checks a lot of boxes. And this guy, a year ago, if Carolina didn't do what Carolina did and didn't fall the way Carolina has fallen, and I mean, shout out David Tapper. I drive by his building every single day on the way to and from UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, and every day I think about it and I say, man, that guy has done a lot of good for the city of Pittsburgh, and he represented the Pittsburgh Steelers very well, but he just doesn't seem to want to do the same thing in Carolina, and it feels like that organization is falling, and it's falling fast. And Thomas Brown just was part of that mix, was part of a group of coaches that seemingly got pushed over and pushed to the side and didn't really get an opportunity. What I've been told about Brown is that he is an offensive genius and that the players love this guy, and that you can't really judge what happened in Carolina because he didn't really get an opportunity to even be an offensive coordinator. Frank Reich was calling plays. Then he wasn't. He handed it to Thomas Brown. Then he took it back. Then he got fired. So you gave it back to Thomas Brown. In the meantime, the offensive line was switching up on a weekly basis. Guys were getting fired left and right. There was all sorts of drama. CJ Stroud was either injured or struggling, and it just wasn't a good place to be. It was a tough situation for anybody to walk into. But if you ask around that organization, and I have asked from Carolina what they think about Thomas Brown, and they said, this guy's got a ton of potential. He is still an offensive genius. He is still a young guy that they believe could turn into something great in the NFL if given an actual opportunity. The coaches respect him. The players love him. That's a guy you want. So as the Steelers continue to interview guys, they continue to climb. They go from Zach Robinson, which is an A+ start for a request to interview, Cliff Kingsbury, which is right behind him. And I get it that one's not formal yet. That one hasn't been reported by anybody other than Peter King saying they'll talk to Cliff Kingsbury. But that's another A+ and shooting for the stars, and you got to feel good. And then Thomas Brown comes in here, and you're going 3 for 3. And I'm not saying that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to hire either of these guys or any of these guys. I'm not saying that any of them are my top choice, because they're not. But I think that this is the beginning of the Pittsburgh Steelers potentially landing their best bet as an offensive coordinator, and that is Clint Kubiak. And right now, and I saw Jim Wexell tweet this out yesterday, and I laughed because it's very true, and I hope that it's very right, and it feels like the steam and the momentum is starting to gain in a way that you think maybe it is right. The Steelers are just doing their due diligence until the 49ers are done playing football, when they could bring in their real candidate in Clint Kubiak. And some will say, well, Kubiak, yeah, good name, good coaching tree. Why is he the top dog? Why is he the number one choice? Why should we all be so excited about this guy if the Steelers are going to approach him? It's easy. He's got the offensive coordinator experience. He's got the play calling experience in Minnesota. He comes from the right coaching tree, and Sean McVay is probably 1B, but Kyle Shanahan is 1A, and he is easily 1A. And the name Kubiak in the NFL already has offensive greatness surrounded by it. So that's another A plus there. That's another check of the box there. That's another positive direction that you are willing to take a shot on. On top of that, he's their passing game coordinator in San Francisco. And I think every single season for the last 2 or 3 years, ever since Matt Canada showed up, or even before that, you constantly heard comparisons. Well, the Steelers are doing this wrong. They should do more of this because this is what Kyle Shanahan is doing in San Francisco. This is what the 49ers offense does. This is how they operate with Brock Purdy. This is how they utilize George Kittle. This is how they utilize Deebo Samuels and Brandon Ayuk and the offensive line and the running game. And look at all this. There's been comparisons for years about how the Pittsburgh Steelers should be more like the offense that this guy is coming from. So why would you not want him? Why would you not want the guy who is conducting a passing game that is unreal, that has turned a Mr. Irrelevant into a potential Super Bowl player? Why would you not do that? An MVP candidate in Brock Purdy. Christian McCaffrey's one of the greatest players to ever touch the turf. Why would you not want that? Why would you not want to be able to utilize a guy like George Pickens the way that the 49ers utilize whoever you want to compare him to? Or Brandon Ayuk the way that Deontay Johnson could be utilized? Why would you not want Pat Freiermuth to be the next George Kittle and to learn to utilize the middle of the field and get open the way that this offense does? It matches all the boxes, and I think you're starting to realize that the Pittsburgh Steelers really do have an opportunity, because earlier when all this started and Mike Tomlin first said, hey, it's going to be an outside candidate, you felt, okay, that's a good step. That is a good acknowledgement. The Steelers are headed in the right direction. But there was some worry. There was some, let's be tedious. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, because if we do, we're going to get let down. We're going to start shooting for the stars. We're going to start naming guys that we believe the Pittsburgh Steelers should go out and get, and then they're going to hire somebody that's an candidate that you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. Pep Hamilton is cool, or Byron Leftwich is a great name. There's plenty of potential there, but I don't really know how I feel about that one. I think it's all there. Now, where we stand, where we currently sit, and the way the Pittsburgh Steelers have gone about this and will continue to go about this, it just feels like every step is a little bit higher, and they're gradually climbing the ladder, and they're making sure that if Kubiak or whoever their top choice is, which I don't think that they've interviewed yet, whoever their top choice is not willing to come to Pittsburgh, that they have fallback plans that are equally as good. That is great news for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It really feels, and I said this yesterday and I'll say it again, that Mike Tomlin is pushing as hard as possible to get somebody in here who is the complete opposite of what they have had throughout his career. That is exactly what he needs. That is exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers need. I believe there is an opportunity, a real opportunity, for Kubiak to end up in Pittsburgh. And man, you should be excited about it if he does.